welcome to the Mindset Michele TV show. We're so super excited for you to be joining us for yet again another fabulous episode with today's wonderful guest, the wonderful guest of Adam Walsh. Hello, Adam.
How you doing, Michele? Lovely to be here.
It's so fabulous to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. And Adam, for those that aren't aware, is from an organisation called Visualize. Now, you may be wondering what that is all about, and Adam will in a moment share some of that with us. But Adam, for those that don't know him, has this amazing business where he not just only talks about, people, and his experience has been around people for many, many years now, but also that very, very important element of values. So many organisations and people talk about the importance of values, but Adam is going to give us some wonderful insights as we chat today around values, how it's worked for him and for his clients, but also more importantly, how he came to be working in such an interesting field. So Adam, please share with the audience, how did you come to be fascinated by values and working to support others to understand theirs?
Well, look, I spent about 25 years in the corporate world. And over those years, I managed people for quite some time. And what sort of stood out to me over the years was there was a fairly significant lack of connection between sort of people and their roles, and it really started to dawn on me, particularly in the last couple of years, that where a lot of that disconnection comes from is a lack of values connection, ultimately. So, there's this misnomer that, people feel that to have some purpose in their lives, to have some sort of meaning in their lives, they need to be on the team that's, building the next breakthrough artificial intelligence, or they need to be building a robot that's doing open heart surgery in the Sahara, controlled by a surgeon 5,000 kilometers away. And what really impressed upon me, particularly with some of the people that I worked with over the years that, really begun to shine, I suppose, in their roles from, underperforming, so to speak, was that when you get people in a place where they can actually feel some purpose and some value in their own little ecosystem, in their own little environment, they really do start to come out of their shell, and they really do start to find some purpose. So, that's really what drove me towards values. It all, I suppose, came out of a process of, I started to get quite interested in the systemization of businesses, and how the processes and procedures all work, and how they all sort of create that customer journey, you might call it, through the business from start to finish. And I started to really see that there's a very important role for values to play in each of those interactions with your customers along that journey. And if you don't have the right people with the right values in the right places, then you start to get that disconnect, not only between people and the roles that they're performing, but also the customers that they're dealing with. So that's kind of where values started to really shine to me as a perfect way to bridge that gap and cross that bridge, so to speak.
Wow, you've explained it so well and so clearly. I really liked that disconnect that you talked about, because I think that's a really lovely way to explain what people may not have been able to label in that way, but that's exactly what it is. It's that disconnect between what people are feeling in terms of meaning and purpose and what they're doing. Perhaps, not everybody's going to be working on something for a surgeon saving lives in the middle of the desert, but also that disconnect in terms of each step in a corporate sense. Is it something that, even when you were younger and growing up, was something that you were passionate about, that meaning and purpose behind why teachers taught in a certain way? Where do you think this first came from?
Yeah, look, that's a really interesting question, Michelle. Look, I think it's always been an underlying thing for me. So, connection has definitely always been quite important to me personally. So yeah, look, I think that where that really has stemmed from, I suppose, is that I'm fairly purpose driven, and I think that it's important that as a society, we talk about the corporate prisoner, right? This is a perfect example of, I feel, where society has come to in a sense. There's a lot of people out there that are they're getting up in the morning and they really don't understand why they're getting up and why they're doing what they're doing, and a lot of that comes from that lack of connection. So yeah, it's been something that has been with me since, as long as I can remember. I've had quite a need to connect with people. Absolutely. Mm.
Wow. And I've heard of corporate refugee before, but corporate prisoner is a new one. And I think that general malaise about why am I doing this? Why am I getting up in the morning? Is this fascinating area of human insight to be interested in.
Mm.
Given that you've been successful in the corporate world in a number of different roles, and now with Visualize, bringing together that wealth of experience under this values theme. But I'm still interested in then, what would you say success to you personally means? Is it understanding your own values and living those each day, or is it something else about success?
Yeah, look, I think it is. I think the first step is absolutely to be able to understand your own values and to be able to articulate them. So being able to have robust and strong conversations around what it is that you value, what your core values are as a human being, and then being able to find a way to contribute to society, whether that be for working in a purpose-driven organization, or ultimately just in your existing role. I think that where the greatest success in life definitely comes from is that feeling of contributing where you're at right now. So where you are as a person, and being able to use who you are and your personal values to actually contribute to society. And whether that be a small group, whether that be society as a whole, whether that be your local environment, your local community, whatever that might be. And that's different for everybody. But the ultimate underlying theme is to, yes, be able to express your values in a positive and useful way, I suppose.
Fabulous. So success to you, if I'm hearing correctly, is the ability to express your values in a meaningful and successful way.
Absolutely. Yep. And contribute. I think that there needs to be an outcome to it as well. So, when we talk about expressing our own values, there needs to be some sort of an outcome, because we are all part of a community. And so you need to be able to, contribute to that community in a meaningful manner.
Yeah, so I'm just interested because people watching are interested in what that might mean to you.
Yep.
In particular. So when you talk about contribute, do you mean like family, job, society, your local community? What do you mean when you talk about success and contributing?
Yeah, well, look, if you talk from I suppose there's two sides to this, right? So if I talk
I'm talking about you again, not what you would describe to clients, but for you personally in your life.
Sure. Yeah, for me personally, it's it's about helping other people to find what it is that's special and unique about them, and connect with that on a daily basis. So that might be contributing, as I said, to the business that they work for. That might be contributing to their, doing volunteer work. That might be, that might be contributing to, something as simple as coaching a football team. I coach my son's baseball team, for instance. And, one of the things that I love about doing that is they're all very young kids. And, just watching them at the beginning of the season, they're scared of the ball and they don't want to throw the ball too hard because they don't want to hurt somebody. And just watching them grow, in confidence and not be so scared of the ball and start to feel their skills building and build that team environment around them. And, they start to really rely on each other and really work as a team and really understand that they are now a little community. And then they pull together for the same goal. They want to win the game, or they want to, they're looking for trophies, or they just, they want to encourage each other to get better. So those are the sorts of, for me, when it comes to that success and how I express my values in the community, for me, it really is all about helping other people to understand how they can do it for themselves.
And what a wonderful example. I really love that example of your son's baseball team and building the values around, building the team, building the winning culture, and also building the skills that they need for that. So Adam, if I was to ask you then, based on this focus on values and based on this contributing, I like that, because sometimes people talk about delivery focus, but I like that contributing focus as well. It's a much kinder word. What sorts of things do you think are important then for people to build like that positive mindset and that positive focus?
Look, I think at its core, it's to find out your natural abilities ultimately, and because everybody has a natural set of skills to connect with other people. So, if you look at every relationship you have, every friendship you have, the ultimate underlying glue between you and every other person that you have a relationship with is, values ultimately. So, for me, it's really about understanding, bringing out your own skills, bringing out your own abilities, and how you use those to connect with other people. And as you do it over and over again, you grow in confidence. So, your ability to connect with other people grows. And then that once you get to that point where you are starting to see that, you can have a positive effect on other people, it then becomes a self-driving system in a sense, because it's quite inspiring to see good outcomes for other people based on the way that you've connected with them. So yeah, I think really just understand who you are, get to the heart of who you are. And this is so important, because there's so many people out there that really have never taken the time to sit down and say, who am I? What am I? What type of personality am I? How is it that I can affect other people? What can I bring to the table in a conversation with somebody? How can I help them? How can I inspire them? How can I help them to move forward in maybe a situation that they're in? What's my unique skill set in the world?
I really love that your advice around how to create that positive mindset is to start by understanding yourself. I think that's a really important, really important and really incredible place to start, understanding who you are, what drives you, what motivates you. How are some of the ways that you understood that for yourself or developed that for yourself?
So probably one of the most effective ways, which was also the most painful way, I might add, was a really, really concerted process of self-evaluation. So you've got to look in the mirror and you've got to say, okay, what can I do better? Where am I not being true to myself? Where am I not showing my own strengths? And where am I being lazy ultimately? Because we're all, there's certain things about our personalities that we want to try and ignore. And there's two reasons for that. There's actually a myriad of reasons, but but two that stand out for me is that, we don't really want to confront the things that make us feel uncomfortable about ourselves. And we also want to avoid, the work being put in to actually fix those things about ourselves, because it's really hard. Because at the end of the day, particularly for me, I mean, my process of really deep self-evaluation happened fairly late in life. So I had, 40 plus years of programming in the brain to overcome. And it was it was a hard task. It was a really hard task. But ultimately, I think if you can look in the mirror and you can say, how can I be better? And let's be really honest about it. Let's really drill down and say, what are the things that I need to do? What are the things that I've been putting off? What am I ignoring? What are those things that make me feel uncomfortable? And really sort of lean into them and understand them, and try and understand where they're coming from too. This is really important, because when you find those things,
just before you go a little bit further down that path, I just want to kind of reflect a little bit on these amazing tips and suggestions that you're making, about understanding yourself and that self-evaluation. I think that as you so beautifully put it, it can be a little bit difficult for people to look in the mirror. I wrote it down. Look in the mirror at how can I be better? I think that that's a really critical point that you were sharing there around, sometimes I can be a bit lazy, I can be a bit slow, I can be a bit this, I can be a bit that, I can be a bit ignoring things that I may need to take care of. So I love that understanding yourself, and for what you were doing, you were suggesting that after 40 years, you realized that you needed to do a little bit more of this self-reflection and look in the mirror and then have a kind of a really honest conversation with yourself. I'm just interested because I'm hearing, and it's very natural, I'm hearing that there was, a little bit of discomfort, or a lot of discomfort around that process. So I'm interested again in, how did you, as you were going through that, keep that positive mindset that, you had a reason for doing it. It wasn't just beating yourself up. You had a valid reason for doing it, and you had a very clear goal and purpose. But and it's very human, as you were going through it, how did you keep positive and keep going is really what I'm asking.
So the key is to recognize each of the little victories. So, I think a lot of us in the modern age are really quite used to instant gratification, ultimately. So, we want to erase issues with ourselves overnight. And when it doesn't happen, when those lifelong tendencies, take a long time to get rid of, we get frustrated with ourselves. So for me personally, I had issues around, feeling, I suppose, worthy of contributing to a conversation. That was a big one. That was a big one for me. A lot of people might call it imposter syndrome, I suppose. So for me, I really dove headlong into networking as a way to actually really push myself to contribute to those conversations with people that, ultimately I had there was no starter to the conversation. There was no context behind it. We weren't talking about something that we were both interested in. It was get in a room with somebody that you've never met and try and have a conversation. Now, the way that I sort of kept myself positive about developing that skill was that after every conversation, I thought to myself, okay, that was 5% easier. So that's progress. So, you know, you're not going to, it's really important to understand that you're not going to, it's a journey, right? It's not a destination. I know that's a pretty cliched thing to say, but it's a cliche for a reason, because it's true. You are going to progress, and you've got to understand when you progress, and you've got to really celebrate those little milestones, those little improvements within yourself. And, you know, every now and again, you know, give yourself a pat on the back and say, hey, you did 5% better today. Because at the end of the day, you know, you've got to understand it is a journey. You're never going to get to the top of that mountain, so to speak. But what you've got to celebrate is the constant improvement, you know, and don't look at the top of the mountain, look at the bottom of the mountain and see how far you've come, basically.
I really love this fabulous example you're using of, you know, and many people, that confidence is the theme that comes up time and time again, and affects people's positive views on things and on themselves so much. So I love this beautiful example again you're using, where you decided, okay, I'm just going to practice in this playpen of networking, whether the conversations are useful or not, or meaningful or not, but seeing it as a way of practicing. And I think that's really, you know, you can even do it with people when you go to a shop and just saying hello, the people serving you, just seeing and playing with life and playing with anything around you, using every opportunity to go, okay, I did that 5% better. And I love how you were looking at the micro increments. You understood that you weren't going to go from feeling a little bit like, who was I to have that conversation? Who was I to speak to that person? All the way to feeling like, you know, of course they should listen to me, etc. It was a journey along there. And I love that 5%, because the micro steps are something that we talk a lot about on the show, because people understanding that instant gratification only kind of exists in theory. It's very rare that, especially when you're working on yourself, that you can kind of go from zero to hero overnight. And it takes a journey, and hero, in terms of hero, can change, and the definition of what success is can change, and being able to mark that journey is a very important part of it. And out of all of the different values that you have studied and looked at, what do you think would be some of the main ones, or one of the main ones, that would help people to keep that positive mindset? What have you seen in your experience helps people to have a really positive mindset?
Yeah. Look, I think for me, ownership is a big one. And the reason I say that is, you know, when I deal with people, for instance, there's a real aspect of, you know, needing to take ownership of that process, and needing to understand that it's not, you're not a passive, you're not a passive sort of observer. Sorry, I'm searching for words here. You're not a passive observer. You know, you're deeply connected to that process, and you have the ability not only to learn from somebody else, but to also perfect what they're teaching you in your own way. So I can teach you to do something. I can teach you to understand, you know, your core values. I can teach you what they mean, and I can teach you maybe, you know, how to actually articulate them, and I can help you articulate them, I should say. But then you take ownership of them, and you now drive them to, you know, towards perfection in your way. So, you know, we only start the process with our customers, for instance, but they take it the rest of the way, and they learn how to improve it every time they try it. So for me, ownership is without a doubt a major value in my life. But also, I've spoken about this a couple of times on this call, just connectedness, I mean, it's such a core requirement just to feel that connection. And I talk about it over and over again, and people get sick of me saying this word, because it has been such a cliche in modern society, but it is such a true statement. I value connectedness so much, because it's not just about that base human instinct of needing that connectedness. It's the more connected you are, the more you learn, the more you improve, the more you then have to teach other people, and they can then take ownership of what you've taught them, and then they can go and they can connect with other people, and it's this flow on effect. So they're probably the two really big ones for me, I think.
So Adam, how fabulous, connectedness and ownership. I love ownership, because I love the way that you were describing, well, even if you have that understanding about your values, you then need to own them and discover how to improve and grow on them for yourself. And a part of that is through connectedness. I really love these two key values that you see as being important for creating and developing that positive mindset. Thank you so much for sharing them with us. Okay. I'm also interested, if people were wanting to get hold of you, then what would be the best way of contacting you?
Mm-hmm. So they can either connect with me on LinkedIn. So that's the primary platform I use. They can also hit me up at my website, which is www.visualize, and that's with a Z, 2 Z's, no S's, .com.au.
Wonderful. And one of my favorite questions to ask people, especially people that have been in different careers like yourself, and kind of come to different awarenesses about themselves at different times, is what advice may you give, or would you give, to your younger self?
To my younger self, get started. Get started. I think, for my younger self, I'll be honest, there was a bit of victim mentality when I was young. So I think that held me back for quite some time, because what I really needed to do was understand that, some things happened and I felt like a victim of those circumstances, but ultimately you have much more control over whether you're a victim or not than you think you are, or than you think you have. So I think for me, it was, I would say to myself, just get started, just start to really understand who you are and what you can contribute, and then start to find ways that you can put that out there into the world and be passionate about it. But get started.
I love that. Just start. It's a very Nike thing, get started, just do it kind of thing. But without necessarily going into too much details, what was it that I'm interested in, just fascinated, what was it that helped you realize that you were the one that needed to take ownership around, you were thinking in a certain way and that was kind of holding you back now, and you wanted to move forward? What was something, if you can share it, that helped you to understand that shift in thinking?
Yeah, certainly. Look, it was probably not one particular thing. I think it was just my journey of finding every excuse under the sun and realizing time and time again that every excuse I was making was invalid. So I eventually just eliminated all of the possibilities, and it came back to the only reason left standing was this guy here. So it was really just a process of elimination. It was that person over there. It was this thing that happened to me when I was young. It was, my experiences. It was my circumstances. And as each one of those excuses fell, the only thing that was left was me. So yeah, that was the common thread in all those things that weren't going well in my life.
I think that that's a very fabulous tip to share, and thank you so much, Adam. I can also share that in my life, when you do that kind of self-analysis about situations and circumstances, and you see that the only common thread is yourself, it can be a bit definitely challenging, definitely eye-opening, and also once you go through that, then very, very rewarding, because it does give you that freedom to go, well, okay, I was thinking in this way, and this is what created my life in that way, and I want to shift my life, and so I need to shift that thinking. And so thank you for sharing with us, Adam, how you came to that awareness as well, that once you'd given up every excuse under the sun, you recognize that you were the common factor there.
Absolutely. And look, just to add one thing to that, if we've got time, what I really want to say to people too is that if you do get to that point and you realize, oh, hang on, it's me, I'm potentially the problem here. One thing I want to say to people is that there's a tendency to really feel defeated at that point. It's like, oh, it's me. What do I do? What I want to say to people is that no matter what the cause is, no matter how close to home it hits, and no matter whether it does turn out to be you that's the problem or not, what I want people to really understand is once you identify the cause, no matter what it is, not only have you identified the cause, you've identified a pathway forward, and really just take that to heart and understand that you have identified a pathway forward. That's ultimately what you've done. So, don't get obsessed with those feelings of inadequacy and those feelings of I've failed. Understand that you have now found the path forward, and you've now found a tool that you can use to fix things.
Wow, what powerful, powerful words to finish up the show with. Thank you so much, Adam. Once you've identified the cause and identified that you perhaps are the cause of some of the things happening in your own life, you've also identified the pathway forward. Really, really powerful. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all of these wonderful insights today, Adam.
My pleasure, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you. And to everybody watching, I hope that you've got as much as I have today out of the show, from these incredible insights from a value specialist, the wonderful Adam Walsh. But for now, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.